Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Lucia Zachariášová. I'm from the Czech Republic and I work for the government. I work in the office of the government where I'm head of the gender equality unit. As regard to my other activities, I'm also a member of the Green Party, so I'm, let's say, politically active. Today or for a very close future, I stand for election to our regional government or to our town government, let's say, Prague 3 government. So in the middle of October I will see if I am or I'm not a representative or in the town government. And I'm also active publicly in connection with LGBT rights and gender equality.
Can you identify most significant landmarks of your life that led you to choose gender issue as important theme of your commitment?
Yes, so I was thinking about this question because I received the questions before, and I would say there were maybe 3 important things in my life. The first is the thing from my childhood, that I was in my family there are few strong women. So on the first place is my mother. She has some. It was not easy in her life, but I think she's very strong and she standed all the situations very good. And other women are both of my grandmothers. And the one grandmother, or one of them, mother of my father, was very important in my childhood, and I was very often with her because my parents were in work, and I was with her during my childhood almost always. So these 3 women influenced me very highly, yeah. Second is during my university studies I met some, let's say, feminists, my friends from art faculty. I met them in the first year of my university, and I'm a lawyer. I didn't study University of Art, but anyway we were together and I was influenced by their attitudes and and we spoke about feminism and gender equality, etc. And I think the third thing was, as I said, I studied law and I worked for attorneys at law, but in I think 2010 or 2009 I changed my job and I started to work for the office of the government in gender equality unit, and I would say that it was one of the best thing in my life that I did this.
Can you tell us how much your cultural roots influenced your professional experience?
Well, I'm not sure if I can speak about some cultural roots. I don't know if you mean cultural roots like my personal cultural roots or like cultural roots of my country.
Oh, you can choose both.
I have to say that in my family we didn't speak about gender equality. We were, let's say, quite stereotypical family. My father had good job and earned more money than my mother, etc. So I think it was quite a standard stereotypical family. But after all this, I became a feminist and I started to work with gender equality. So as I spoke about these strong women in my childhood, I think this is the greatest influence of me. So I would not speak about cultural roots as such.
Thank you. Can you tell pros and cons of being a woman in your professional experience?
Yeah. So, as a positive thing, I would mention that the thing that I'm a woman makes me more authentic, I would say. If I come somewhere and say, this is a question of women's rights, they believe it to me. Maybe one negative thing in this is that I have no children now, or until now. So sometimes when I say we need more kindergartens, or we need some protection for mothers, or we can have children in kindergarten in lower age than 3 years, because in the Czech Republic we have kindergartens from 3 years. They say, but well, you have no children, so don't speak about this with us. So, but on the other hand, sometimes due to, let's say, gender stereotypes, maybe I have quite a lower respect on some meetings, let's say. I'm a woman, I'm a young woman, so sometimes older men, let's say, don't respect me as much. But I think it's fine, and I can stand this quite well, so it's not a problem for me personally, but sometimes I'm a little bit surprised from some situations.
According to you, how gender violence phenomenon could be related to the most general weak social position of women?
Yeah, I think there is very strong relation, because gender violence, or let's say domestic violence, is a very big problem. And for example, in my work we try to analyze this phenomenon in connection with labor market, for example, because there are quite strong impacts on labor market, because women in violence, let's say, or domestic violence influenced position of of people in the labor market. And I think the biggest problem domestic violence or gender-based violence is the biggest problem in connection with vulnerability of women. So, and it's of course a gender problem, because there are much more men than women as a violent person. So the position of this, let's say, vulnerable women is more, or is worse if they are in violent situation.
What role could school act in terms of awareness and education about gender matter, and the role of university? And do you know example of good practices?
Yeah, I think the role is very important. It's very important if there are teachers in school, and the environment in school is, let's say, gender open, and if people there have some gender knowledge. It would be very nice if we have it, but for example in the Czech Republic we are not in this situation for now, but we are trying to educate teachers, and to try to educate also children in gender equality and human rights, etc. It is not easy, but it is happening more or less in the Czech Republic. Also university is quite important in this connection, but not so much, I would say, because people there are, let's say, adults. I think, for example, in universities, big problem is sexual harassment. We had some cases in the Czech Republic, and I think this is very, very big problem, especially because there is like power relation between teacher and students. And as regards some good practices, I'm not sure if I know about something in the Czech Republic. I spoke and I mentioned some bad practices, so maybe I would rather say more about bad practices than good practices.
Women and political representation. What do you think about female gender quotas?
Yes, I think it's the best way how to increase number of women in politics and in decision-making positions. So I support quotas for 100%. I'm pro quotas. It's a very good thing. And I think it's the only one way now in this society with power relations as we have it now in this patriarchal society, how we can increase number of women in politics. So I think quotas are good measure, and I also think that it is not it cannot stand as the only one measure. I think quotas are something like a framework for other measures, because if you say to the political party you have to have some number of women on your candidate lists, they have to start to think how we will do it, where we find good women and how we can educate them and how we can help them to be politically active. So I think quotas are only the first step, and then we have to do much more other measures. We have to reconcile private and political life. We have to do mentoring, coaching, etc. So, but quotas are good.
Mm-hmm. Women's sexuality is still exploited and used as instrument of control by the side of dominant power. Mm-hmm. For example, TV commercials and sports as one of the most evident space of women exploitation. What do you think about it?
Yes, I agree with this. I think due to gender stereotypes, we still see women on the first place on the grounds of their look, and we still see men on the grounds of their acts or thoughts, let's say. And media and commercials are very important in this. For example, in the Czech Republic we have one NGO which is active in this field, and they do competition for sexist commercials. And I think this is very, very useful activity, how to say to the society this is not good and we don't like sexist commercials and sexist pictures and sexist everything about men and women in media.
Can you find signs of the generational movement of changing of gender conditions that make awareness of women's rights growing more and more?
I would say yes. I think public awareness about this topic is higher than it was, I don't know, before, let's say, 25 years, especially in the Czech Republic. And I think the Czech Republic is also quite specific because we were more than 40 years in communist regime. And this communist part of our history was quite important in connection with gender equality and position of men and women in society. But I think after 1989, in these 25 years, a lot of was done in the field of gender equality. So I think this generational move is quite strong, but still we have a lot of problems. We have a big gender pay gap, one of the biggest in the European Union. There is still domestic violence, and we have not enough places for children in kindergartens. So we are still facing a lot of problems. So it is not like, yes, we are done and we can stop with everything. But I see some changes.
Nowadays, What is men's contribution to reflection and active support for protection of gender opportunities?
Maybe I mention my work experience. As I said, I work in Gender Equality Unit, and we are also Secretariat of the Government Council for Equal Opportunities for Women and Men. And this Government Council has one working group called Men and Gender Equality. So I think men are more and more interested in this topic, and they also more and more understand that it is not only a topic for feminists or for women, but it influences and affects the whole society. And they are also discriminated in some fields. For example, if you say I'm going to parental leave, very often in your work they say, oh, you are a little bit stupid now, are you normal? Or if you want to be a teacher in kindergarten, for example, it is not a very typical job for men. So I think, and also their contribution is important if they support the topic, because as I said, it is not only a topic for women, but the society still thinks that it is only women's topic and we don't need to care about it because it's only few women which wants to have equal rights. I don't think so. So if we have some men supporters, it's very important for us.
In the environment closest to you, have you ever noticed insufficient supports to women's cause, and have you ever assisted to discrimination acts?
I would say that I've never assisted to discrimination acts. I hope so. I'm not aware of any of this situation. And I didn't notice any insufficient supports to women's cause, so no.
Can you make a comparison between your own country welfare situation about legal protection of women's rights and European one?
Yes, so the Czech Republic is member of the European Union, so that means that we have to implement all the directives and all the European law into our legal system. So I think de jure we have a lot of things. For example, it is prohibited to discriminate in pace in your work, or it's prohibited to discriminate as such because we have anti-discrimination law. Reality is quite different. So there is a part, as I said, de jure, but there is also de facto situation. And I have also mentioned that Czech Republic is the country with one of the highest gender pay gap in the European Union. Also, for example, unemployment and employment of women is quite high or low. Unemployment is high, employment is quite low in comparison with other countries in the European Union. So I think legal framework is quite okay, but the real situation is not so good in comparison with other European countries.
Dreams are immortal. Is the dream that made your professional experience begin still alive? And if the dream has changed, what is changed?
Okay, so maybe in two words, my dream is gender equality, let's say, and I think it's still only a dream because I'm not sure if it's possible to reach total and ideal gender equality in society. And I don't think that my dream changed if we speak about gender equality and women's rights and men's rights. I think it's still the same. We need to be equal and we need to work for bigger, higher gender equality in the Czech Republic, in my close environment, in the world as such. And I think this dream will last in my life for maybe few more years.
Do you feel a fulfilled woman? would you change something, and what would you achieve as next goal?
Yeah, I would say I feel fulfilled woman. I love my work, and I also love my other activities, as I mentioned, in the Green Party, in my public life as an activist, let's say. So in this field and in this connection, I'm very fulfilled and I like it, and I'm very happy that I can do gender equality and I can support women's rights. And what is my next goal? Maybe I have also mentioned it. I stand or candidate in elections in October. So maybe my goal is to be a government representative in Prague 3.
We wish you good luck with that. So thank you for your contribution and time. It was a great time. So thank you.
Thank you.